Welcome and thanks for joining us for this ORCID workshop for researchers. My name is Paulo Guhilde. My pronouns are he and him, and I am the ORCID US Community Specialist. My colleague Sheila Raymond, our program leader for persistent identifiers, is also joining us here today. Sheila and I manage the ORCID US Community at Lyrasis. Lyrasis provides consortial services for libraries, archives, museums, and related knowledge communities. Whether you're familiar with ORCID or have never heard of it, ORCID is an increasingly important factor of your digital identity and impact as a researcher, and it's designed to help you save time, which I will talk more about in a minute. To help you get the most value from ORCID, today we are going to cover an overview of ORCID, the ORCID ID, and the ORCID record, and how ORCID can benefit you. And then we'll make sure you know how to get your own ORCID ID if you don't already have one. And we'll cover a few tips for how to save time in populating your ORCID record with your information. So, for those who may be unfamiliar, or as a refresher for those who already know, what is ORCID? ORCID stands for Open Researcher and Contributor Identifier. The goal of ORCID is to uniquely identify you so that you can get credit and attribution for your work and streamline your digital identity so you can save time and administrative tasks while keeping track of all of your affiliations and contributions in one central place. ORCID is a nonprofit community-driven organization that serves the entire global research community. ORCID provides researchers with what we call an ORCID ID, a 16-digit that is unique to you, so you can distinguish yourself from other researchers despite the complexities that come with identifying ourselves by name. Anyone can get their own ORCID ID for free, and it looks something like this. This ORCID ID belongs to our volunteer researcher, Sophia. You'll notice that the ORCID ID looks like a link, and that is because it is. Your ORCID ID links to what we call an ORCID record. So if we click on this ORCID ID link, we are taken to Sophia's ORCID record, which is populated with information about her, similar to what we might see on a CV or resume, like her employment information. We can also see that she has different name formations in the also known as section, as well as her country and some keywords describing her research areas. Scrolling down, we can see that Sophia also has her education and qualifications listed. Invited positions, distinctions, memberships, and service. Funding that she has received, research equipment she has used, and works such as publications she has written. Last but not least, we can also see her peer review activity here. Now, let's talk about the benefits of ORCID. ORCID distinguishes you from others. Your ORCID ID persists over time, even if your name changes or if anything else in your life changes. Your ORCID record can bolster your digital identity, and ultimately, your ORCID record can save you time when you have to fill out forms that ask for information about you and your research activities. Additionally, many publishers and funders are starting to require ORCID IDs from authors and investigators. So if you have not already run into this, it's likely you will in the future. At the most basic level, ORCID ID distinguishes you and ensures your research outputs and activities are correctly attributed to you, especially when you are publishing and working with other people. For example, in this PubMed abstract, there are not only multiple authors, but multiple authors with the same last name, the same first initial. So it's impossible to distinguish who is who these researchers are, their credentials, institutional affiliations, or other research that they have contributed to. These are just names on the page with no additional context or identifying information. If we are looking for an author named Sofia Garcia, for example, there could be multiple people who identify with that name. But again, with ORCID ID, because Sophia's ORCID ID is unique, we can better distinguish her and her works and activities from other individuals. So ORCID helps to streamline your online digital identity in the research landscape. The ORCID ID is helpful because one, if there are other people who share your name, B, if your name has changed, or if you use different variations of your name in the past, your ORCID ID stays the same and can tie you to your affiliations and activities throughout your career through your ORCID record. When research contributions are findable, linked to the individuals involved, and centrally located in an ORCID record, data and deliverables can be more easily shared and reused. Researchers can find each other and make connections, and researchers get recognition for their work. Now, we are going to keep talking about the benefits of ORCID, but looking specifically at how ORCID can benefit you in the research landscape, regardless of how popular your name is or whether your name has changed. When you think about the very basic aspects of the activities that a researcher is involved in, you get a job somewhere at the university or agency or other type of institution or organization, then you get funding to work on specific research, and then you do your research and publish the results. Then you have to report on your activities to your employer, and you have to report back to the organization that provided your funding. This diagram is very simplistic, and we know that things can get increasingly complex as you continue to work with more and more organizations over time. ORCID helps to streamline this process both for you as a researcher and also the organizations that you work with. When it comes to getting funding, many funders, especially in the health sciences, not only ask for or require that investigators provide their ORCID ID, so the funder can distinguish you, but they also use ORCID to help you save time depending on what the funder you're working with and what systems they are using. These are just a few of the funders that are using ORCID in their workflows. So for example, we have American Heart Association, Autism Speaks, Howard Hughes Medical Institute, Simons Foundations, and Wellcome Trust. And even if you are not in the health sciences, get ready because coming soon, all federal agencies that provide grant funding will be starting to or encourage additional persistent identifier for investigators. So we are expecting to see even more usage of ORCID coming up in the next few years. Some funding systems will allow you to sign in using ORCID, so you don't have to remember yet another system password. So that makes it really easier. So this is an example from a system called Proposal Central, which many funders are using. Some funding systems also will allow you to import info from your ORCID record directly into funding applications and also into the progress report so that you don't have to spend time filling out forms and retyping everything over and over again. The Proposal Central platform that I mentioned allows for this. An example on this slide is from Science CV, which can be used to create a biosketch for NIH or NSF funding applications. When you are creating a new biosketch, you can select ORCID as an external source, and the system will automatically pull in all of your information from your ORCID record, such as your bio, employment history, and educational background. Then for work citations, you can select ORCID and then select which citations you want to import to Science CV from your ORCID record. Finally, make sure to click Save Citations, and this should add your selected citations to your biosketch. And some funders will actually add your funding awards to your ORCID record for you. so you don't even have to update that yourself. This is an example of funding that a researcher received through a Children's Tumor Foundation. And you can see the source of this entry is the Children's Tumor Foundation, which means that the foundation or the organization added this funding information to Raymond's ORCID record on his behalf. So he did not have to enter it himself. Now, for publishers, same basic thing. Many of you already know that publishers often require or ask for your ORCID ID when you submit a manuscript. And publishers have been doing this even longer than funders. These are just a few of the publishers that are using ORCID. So publishers such as the American Chemical Society, American Physical Society, IEEE, Sage Publications, and Wiley. The benefits here are similar to the funding workflows. Publishing systems often allow for you to sign in using ORCID, so you don't have to remember a different password for each publisher that you are working with. Sometimes publisher pre-fill forms with information from your ORCID record to help you save time with any info that you might need to submit to a publisher. And publishers will often automatically add your publication information to your ORCID record for you, which saves you even more time, and that shows in this example. Research institutions, especially universities, are also increasingly using ORCID in their workflows. And these are just a few examples from the US. So we have Boston College, for example, Emory University, North Carolina State University, RTI International, and many others. Similarly to funders and publishers, institutional systems can allow you to connect your ORCID ID with the institution. The example that you are seeing here is from Stanford, where researchers can connect their ORCID ID with their Stanford ID in order to allow for information to flow between their ORCID record and Stanford systems. Institutional systems like research information management systems or reporting systems are often set up to allow you to import information from your ORCID records, so you don't have to re-enter information over and over again. Just make sure that your ORCID record is up to date. Then you can transfer your information to your university by clicking a button, as you can see from this example of Faculty 180, ORCID import at Boston College. So really, a lot of it is the idea of saving time. And also, institutions can add information to your ORCID record for you, like your employment affiliation and any other relevant info, where the source of the information will be the name of the institution rather than your own name, which adds a degree of authority and trustworthiness to the information in your ORCID record. A few other areas where trusted organizations can add information to your ORCID record for you include peer review activity. So if you have served as a peer reviewer and provided your ORCID ID during that peer review work, it is possible to have your peer review activity automatically added to your ORCID record for you. As you can see in this example where Publins has added peer review activity to this person's ORCID record. And a relatively new section of the ORCID record that organization can add information to on your behalf is the research resources section, which keeps track of special labs, equipment, or facilities that you may have used in the course of your research. For example, on this slide, we can see that this person used a high-flex isotope reactor at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and the lab added that usage to the person's ORCID record as a confirmation. So basically, ORCID is used by funders, publishers, and research institutions across the globe to uniquely identify the researchers they work with and to make any application and reporting requirements easier for researchers by allowing data to be transferred between ORCID records and local organizational systems. In this graphic, you can see the researcher at the center with their ORCID ID and their ORCID record. And then the organizations that a researcher works with are able to connect with the researcher through their ORCID ID to get information about the researcher, but also to add relevant information to the researcher's ORCID record for them. Again, saving time. The idea is that you or the organization that you are affiliated with can populate your information in your ORCID record once, and then you can reuse the information from your ORCID record when you have to provide that information to other organizations. Not every organization's systems uses ORCID in this way. So the best approach is to keep an eye out for the green ORCID ID icon when you're working with these types of organizations. And if you see it, use it so that you can save time by signing in to systems using ORCID, importing info from your ORCID record to fill forms, reports, activities, and setting info from other systems to your ORCID record for future use. So the idea of enter once, reuse often. Now that you know what ORCID is and how it can benefit you, it's time to get your own ORCID ID if you don't already have one. So if you don't have an ORCID ID yet, if you don't remember whether or not you have an ORCID ID, go to orcid.org/register. On the first screen, you will input your first name and last name and your email address. It is recommended to add more than one email address so that if you lose access to one email account, for example, you can still access your ORCID account. Next, you will set your password to your ORCID account, as well as your notification settings. And finally, you will set your default data visibility settings and accept ORCID's terms of use. For the visibility settings, this has to do with who can see the information on your ORCID record. The options are everyone, which means by default, the info in your ORCID record will be publicly visible online. Trusted organizations means that the only organizations that you authorize will be able to see information on your ORCID record. And only me, which means the information will be completely private and only you can see it. We will talk more about these visibility settings in a minute, but I will say that in order to get the most value from your ORCID record, the public setting is recommended, or the trusted parties setting. You can always change the visibility setting, the visibility for specific entries in your ORCID record if there are certain items that you want to be private or publicly visible. And we will cover that next. But once you have registered your ORCID ID, you will receive a confirmation email from ORCID that you will need to click on to confirm your account and start to add information. If you try to register for an ORCID ID, but you already have one, ORCID will alert you if there's already an ORCID ID associated with your email address or addresses. The idea is that you will only have one ORCID ID to identify you throughout your career. Sometimes people have created an ORCID ID, but then forget about it. So this is designed to prevent you from accidentally registering for multiple ORCID IDs. Once you have registered for your ORCID record, if you already have an ORCID ID, or you can log into your ORCID record at orcid.org/login. Note that you can also choose to use your Gmail or Facebook credentials to log into ORCID. If you are affiliated with a university, you might also be able to use your university login credentials to log into ORCID by clicking the Access Through Your Institutions button. Registering for ORCID ID is the first step, but remember, to really benefit and save time with ORCID, you need to make sure you have information populated in your ORCID record. So adding information to your ORCID record is pretty straightforward. Remember that the more information you have in your ORCID record, the more it will serve to distinguish you, and you can save more time when interacting with ORCID-enabled reporting systems. The ORCID record provides space for you to include biographical information about yourself, including the also known as section, where you can list any other names that you have used, employment education information, memberships, service, invited positions, and distinctions. funding that you have received, and works that you have produced. One important thing to note before we get started is that you have full control over the data in your ORCID record, your privacy, and the visibility of your data. When you are logged into your ORCID record, you can control the visibility settings for each piece of data in your ORCID record as shown here. You can choose between three different settings. The first is everyone, which means that the data will be public and anyone on the internet can see this information. The next one is only me, and that's really the idea that it's only you and it's a private information, and it's only you that can see this information or this record. And finally, you can choose the trusted parties option, which means that only individuals that you designate or organizations that you connect your ORCID ID with will be able to see this information. With these visibility settings in mind, let's get started with populating information in your ORCID record. That said, information can be added to your ORCID record in a few different ways. You can add information to your ORCID record yourself, or you can designate a trusted individual to add information to your ORCID record for you. For the works and funding sections of ORCID, you can use the built-in search and link wizards to claim items to your ORCID record, or you can connect your ORCID ID with organizations that you work with so that those organizations can add information to your ORCID record for you automatically. Again, not all organizations are set up to do this yet, so you will just need to ask and look for the ORCID ID icon on any systems that you may be using. For the employment section, you can click on Add Employment and then type in your information in the box that appears. You will want to start typing the name of your organization and select your organization from the drop-down that appears, which will pre-populate some of the information. You then just need to fill in the details of your employment and click Add to List. The more employment history you can include, the better. You will use the same basic process to add your education information. Again, go to the education section and click Add Education, start typing the name of your organization, and select it from the dropdown that appears. Then fill in your education details and click Add to List. If you are currently in school, your university might be able to add your education information to your ORCID record for you. So you might want to check with your school to see if this is an option. And there are other ways that other examples also that you can add manual entries. So the areas of qualifications, invited positions, distinctions, memberships, and service. These are the area that you can add information. You can type it in, include it into your ORCID record. Now, if you don't have time or if you have an assistant to help you, you can designate a trusted individual to add info and update information on your ORCID record for you. When you are logged into your ORCID record, you can click on your name in the top right corner of the screen and then click on Account Settings. In the drop-down that appears on your on your account settings page, if you scroll down a bit, you will see Trusted Individuals section where you can search for and designate someone as a trusted individual on your ORCID account. You can only make someone a trusted individual if they also have an ORCID account, but ORCID is free for anyone to register, and ORCID can be used by researchers and contributors, so you don't necessarily have to be a researcher to have an ORCID ID. The work section is down towards the bottom of your ORCID record. And if you click on the button to add works, you'll see a drop down with many options for different ways you can add works to your ORCID record. Of course, you can always add works manually or using any of the other options, but to save time, I recommend using the search and link option first. If you click on search and link, you will see a list with various publication databases. Each of these databases is integrated with ORCID so that if you have publications in any of these resources, like PubMed, for example, you can search for them through the database and have them added to your ORCID record without having to retype them all in manually. You may or may not have works in the available databases, depending on your discipline, but I would encourage you to look through these and try connecting with the databases that might contain your works. If you have any works that have been published in journals, or if you know you have works that have DOIs, which stands for Digital Object Identifier, I recommend using the Crossref metadata search and the DataCite databases indicated here. Any of your works that have DOI should be found in one of these databases. The Crossref and DataCite search and link wizards are also extra helpful because once you connect with them here, any future works that you publish along with your ORCID ID can be added automatically to your ORCID record for you in the future. Again, saving time for you. All of the search and link wizards basically work the same way. So I will show you how this works using Crossref as an example. You will first be asked to authorize Crossref as a trusted party on your ORCID record so they can add your work's information to your ORCID record for you. You will be taken to a search page where you can search within Crossref to find your publications. You can go ahead and search just based on your name, which is filled in by default. Or if you know the DOI for your work, for example, you can include that as well. I will start just by searching for a name. And this example is with our program leader in our program, as Sheila Raymond. And we will hit launch for the to do the search. A page will appear with search results, and ideally, you will be able to find works that belong to you. You can always adjust the search terms in the search box at the top. And if you don't see your works initially, you can use the search filters on the left side or sort by relevance or date. When you see a work that belongs to you, click Add to ORCID to have it added to your ORCID record for you. This should appear in your works section with the source as your name via Crossref or the name of the search and link wizard database you are connecting with. So here you can see Sheila's name via Crossref metadata search. You can also add works to ORCID by importing a bibtex file, which you can download from various sources such as Google Scholar or Zotero, for example. And you can always export all of your ORCID works to a bibtex file if you need to get those works into a different system or format. See that here. Next, you will want to add your past funding information to your ORCID record. In the funding section of your ORCID record, when you click Add Funding, you can see that you can either select Search and Link or add manually. Start by selecting Search and Link, then click on Dimensions Wizard. Dimensions Wizard is a funding database that is connected to ORCID. So you find your funding awards in the database and have them added to your ORCID record for you. You will be asked to authorize a connection between your ORCID record and Dimensions Wizard so that Dimensions Wizard can add your funding to your ORCID record. So go ahead and click Authorize. This will make Dimensions Wizard a trusted party on your account. You will then be taken to a page that allows you to search for any past funding you have received, either searching based on your name or the name of the grant. Once you have done your research or your search, a list of matching grants will appear. And you can select which one or more than one that belongs to you using the check boxes next to each listing. Once you have selected your grants from the list, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page and click Next. Now confirm your selection and click Submit to ORCID. From there, You can go back to your ORCID record and you should see the funding entry with the source indicating that it came from Dimensions Wizard. So similar to what we've seen with Crossref metadata search. So if you can't find any of past grants in Dimensions Wizard, for example, you can always add them manually. And last but not least, also know that trusted organizations can often add information to your ORCID record for you if they are configured to do that. So keep your eye out for opportunities to connect your ORCID ID with various organizational systems and platforms that you might be using during your publishing, grant funding, and reporting workflows. Trusted organizations are authorized through the same process that we saw when we connected with Crossref and the Dimensions Wizard earlier. Typically, when interacting with a system, you would be asked to connect your ORCID ID where you log into ORCID and click authorize when asked for permission to connect. Once you have connected your ORCID ID with trusted organizations, those organizations will appear listed in the account settings of your ORCID record. For trusted organizations, the thing to remember is that basically any information organization that has enabled their systems to work with ORCID can ask for your permission to add authoritative information to your ORCID record for you. So you don't have to worry about adding it. Here are a few examples where we can see that an organization has written information to these individuals' ORCID record where the source of the information is the same name of the organization, is the name of the organization rather than the name of the individual. So the information in your ORCID record can essentially be verified by the organizations, saving you time as well as you don't have to worry as much about keeping your information up to date. So the example of City University of Hong Kong, Children's Tumor Foundation, all of these are all trusted organizations that sent their information into an ORCID record. Now, we always recommend that you use your ORCID ID wherever possible. So whether it's a publishing system, it could be a funding system, when you're applying for a grant, or any other vendors or services that may have that ORCID ID, we always recommend wherever possible to use the ORCID ID. Because the idea here is that you are saving time for you, but also saving time for the organizations and institutions that trying to get the information or the data that you have. So it's really the idea that you want to have all of these and then use the ORCID ID to enter your information once, and reuse this information often to the different systems that's available and that are enabled with ORCID. So with that, these are additional resources that you can use. We do have them available for you. We will share this information with you, the slide deck in the afterwards when we have all the video and this the video ready to share with everyone. And you should receive this email with a link to the video as well as the slide deck and the other resources that you might find useful. With that, thanks for listening, and we will go into our questions and discussions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Paolo. We had several questions in the chat during the presentation. So many of the questions that were just asked, I was able to answer in the chat. But if people have additional questions, please feel free to continue typing them in there. And we can just go down in order. So Paolo, let me see. One of the first questions that has not been answered yet, Paolo, is is it possible to delete entries? And what control further than visibility is there?
That's a great question, and thanks for that, Sheila. Yes, you can delete entries in the ORCID record, and you can also change some of those entries if needed. As far as providing additional controls, the
Mhm.
visibility settings are the ones that you really have kind of an individual control on your ORCID record. So really the idea of the ORCID record is that you are the one in control of that data. So you can change those,
Mhm.
each individual record, if you want to either have them publicly available, make them private, or you just want it to be trusted organizations. You can either do that individually on your under the record, or you can also do it at a top level where all of the data on your ORCID record, for the most part, are either publicly available or private, or it could be just be for trusted organizations. Sheila, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would just say in order for an organization to add information to your ORCID record for you, you would have had to go through kind of a process where you click a button that authorizes that organization or that platform to add information to your ORCID record for you. So that's kind of an additional layer of control. If you don't authorize an organization to add information to your ORCID record for you, then an organization can't even add information. So you have that initial layer, and then once information is in your ORCID record, then you can control the visibility. So kind of like that process we saw when we connected to the Crossref search and link wizard for the first time, and we had to click authorize to allow Crossref to add information. That's the same kind of process you would have to go through for each organization that you wanted to be able to make changes to your ORCID record. But yeah, that's a great question. I'm seeing that we have some more questions coming in. The next one is, do you still give away those cool stickers? I'm assuming the ORCID swag, basically. Paolo, do you want to answer that?
Yes, yes, we definitely still have the stickers. So if you do have any outreach events that are coming up, let us know and we could send some your way. But yeah, we definitely send those out, especially to people that help us out and volunteer with our work here at the ORCID US community. And I agree, they are pretty cool.
Great. So there's another question, which is, what are the advantages of ORCID over Google Scholar? And I'm happy to speak to that, but Paolo, if you want to start, that's fine too.
No, go ahead, Sheila. You can go ahead and do that.
Okay. So ORCID and Google Scholar are, they're slightly similar, but they're also very different. So Google Scholar basically is a product of Google that goes out onto the internet and just kind of searches based on name, really, to find works and publications that people have put out there. And they work with publishers to kind of gather that information, and they'll create a Google Scholar profile for you that contains all of the works that they were able to find that they think belong to you based on the information that they have. So they have their own kind of algorithms that do that searching. And it's really just a product of Google, and it's part of the search engine, and it just creates a profile for you if you have publications out there. ORCID is different from that. ORCID is a nonprofit organization that provides that identifier, so like a persistent identifier for you as an individual. Google Scholar doesn't really have an identifier like that. So ORCID, not only allows you to have that identifier to identify yourself, and as long as your ORCID ID is kind of connected to all of your publications and all of the activities that you're doing, all of those things can be correctly tied to you. So it kind of allows you to have to kind of get beyond just identifying yourself by name, just because we know how that can get very messy and complicated. Also, what we've described with being able to use your ORCID ID and fill out forms by clicking a button and sending data from your ORCID record into like a funding application, or having an organization write information to your ORCID record for you. It's kind of this like interoperable CV, so to speak. So that is definitely a service that Google Scholar does not provide. So so they're similar in that, as an individual, Google Scholar is kind of helping you keep track of your publications. ORCID is keeping track of publications and funding and affiliations and all these other things, and allowing you to save time when you are going through processes where you can use your ORCID record to fill out forms. Hopefully that helps. Maybe we can write a blog post that goes into more depth about that. But yeah, thanks for that question. And I see we have several more questions coming in. I'm just going to keep going down. So somebody said that when they used Dimensions Wizard to enter funding, it added 2 entries for each funding item. That may be a slight bug or something. That's not typical behavior. Usually it should just add 1 entry, but if it did add 2, then yeah, I would say just delete 1. Or you can set the visibility of one of them to private and leave the other one public. But yes, you're noticing that there's a preferred source, and that is exactly for this purpose. So if you have duplicate funding entries or duplicate works entries, you can choose which one you want to show on top, and ORCID will kind of collapse the 2 together. Yeah, Paul, if you want to take over.
Sure. Yeah. So this is kind of an example of that preferred source on the works section. So basically, you'll see like this particular article or chapter, for example, have 2 entries. One is from Crossref metadata search, and the other one is a manual entry from me. So basically here, I've added the works publication or the entry myself early on. And then I went ahead and connected to Crossref metadata search and claimed or grabbed that citation from Crossref metadata, the Crossref database, and that got sent to my ORCID record. So in this sense, I've chosen the one that's most authoritative in the preferred source. So that would be the Crossref metadata search. So, but I did keep the other ones to just kind of have it there. But I chose the Crossref metadata search entry as the preferred source. So you will see that here. And you can kind of see that on the entry itself that you have 2, and the preferred source is the one on top.
Awesome. Okay, so there's another question. Do you generally advise undergrads to get an ORCID ID even if they're not sure if they will go on as a researcher?
I think it's a great idea to have to encourage undergrads to have ORCID ID, even if they're not planning to be, or they're still not sure whether they want to move on as a researcher. Again, ORCID is really open to everyone, and having, especially some of your undergrads are probably already doing some publications or doing some, assisted in a laboratory, for example, and those things may be valuable in their ORCID record or to have that in their ORCID profile. So having that, an ORCID ID and an ORCID record, I think will be valuable in the long term for them. Sheila, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'll say I agree. And in my opinion, personally speaking, I use my ORCID record as my kind of resume or CV, so to speak. I, keep track of all my information there. And then, for example, I have my ORCID ID link in my signature on my email. So, or if I'm giving a presentation and I have to provide a bio, I usually just say like one sentence about myself and then say you can find out more by going to my ORCID records. So you don't have to be a full-time researcher to really get benefits from ORCID. Anyone really can have an ORCID ID. It stands for researchers and contributors. So yeah, you don't have to be a hardcore researcher to use ORCID. I would say anyone who's in school or any kind of discipline or profession could even just use ORCID as kind of an online CV resume type of thing. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, more questions. Let's see, there's something about a trusted individual. So it says, as a trusted individual, my ORCID is appearing on PI's current and pending CV information in Science CV. So we've just been deleting those, but I'd like to know how to help our PIs ensuring the correct ORCID migrates with the data. That is interesting. This is a new one. I don't know what's going on there. I would say contact us for this one and we can explore it further. The current and pending section of Science CV is one that historically has not been, you haven't been able to import data from ORCID into that form. But that's something that I know the federal agencies are working on. So that may be kind of like a new thing that we'll need to look into with you. So please do send us an email. I just put our email address in the chat. It's orcidus@lyrasis.org, and we can work with you more closely on that question. And then we have another question. Do you plan to improve the searching capability for locating the ORCID of registered researchers / authors? So that's a great question because people are always wanting to search for other people in ORCID. And I don't know, Paula, if you want to talk about that a little bit, or I can talk about it too.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely, I think the searching capabilities there is a good idea to have. One of the things that we do encourage is to have more of like that we really a best practice for ORCID is to really to kind of have more of because an open OAuth or authorization process when you're gathering ORCID IDs. So, for example, going through the login system to have say if you have a proposal central or if you have faculty 180. So going through that kind of authentication to get the ORCID ID is the best practice. So you know that for sure that that person is the correct person with an ORCID ID. But that's really kind of one of the things that I could think of. But Sheila, please go ahead and add more to that.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on where you're coming from. So if you are somebody who works at, let's say you work at a university and your staff or faculty and you're trying to find the ORCID ID for specific researchers at your institution, what Paolo described is the best practice, just because there could be multiple people with that same name, and how do you know which person, which ORCID ID to use for which name, especially if people don't have information populated in their ORCID record yet. That's another really good reason why it's so important to have information populated in your ORCID record. So if people are looking for you, they can actually be able to somewhat tell that you're the person they're looking for and your ORCID ID is the person they're looking for. So I would say if you are staff at an organization and you're looking for researchers' ORCID IDs, I would also encourage you to email us. And we can go into more depth with ways that we can search for people and the best practices for how to get those ORCID IDs. If you are a researcher and you are just curious and wanting to find your colleagues, you can always go to the ORCID website. There's a search box here, and you can type in your colleague's name. So I'll just do mine and search, and it will bring up a list of all of the ORCID records that match that. Looks like I'm the only person in ORCID with my name, so that's kind of an easy one. Plus, I have all my information filled out. But if I search for a more common name, there would be a lot of results there, and it would be kind of hard to tell who's who. You can always go to this advanced search, click advanced search, and here's where you can even enter like an institution name or a keyword. Or if you know the person's ORCID ID and you just want to find it, you can type that in there too. So that's what's available right now. But again, it also kind of depends on who you are and why you're searching for ORCID IDs, and we can kind of point you maybe in a better direction, knowing that context that you're coming from. These are really great questions. Are there any others? Any other questions?
Okay. Great. So if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to email us at orcidus@lyrasis.org. Any of those, questions that you might want to do a follow-up now, if you want, you can definitely send us an email. We will also send out an email to you all, to all the who registered for this workshop, with a link to the video of the recording, as well as the slide deck that you can use. So again, thank you for joining us today. And, please take a look at our events calendar if you want to take a look at what's the future or upcoming events for ORCID US Community. But thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. See you later.